Coming to you direct from the nerve center of the galaxy's greatest comic. This is the 2000 AD Thrillcast.
Welcome to the 2000 AD Thrillcast, Earthlets, where we're halfway to our interview with former 2000 AD art editor and artist Robin Smith. We'll cut to the chase, as in this episode we talk Bad City Blue, how to make your own Tharg head, the attempt to give 2000 AD a sister title, the Bogie Man, creator-owned comics, and what he's been up to since his days at 2000 AD. 1984. Yeah, you left editorial 2000 AD.
Yeah.
Now you've already mentioned that you've been intending to go freelance. Was there something that finally kind of nudged you over the edge?
No, it wasn't like that at all. I wanted to go freelance because I wanted to do some more drawing and stuff, and just get on with it and things. So I just wanted to sort of have the challenge today. I just fancy doing it because you got to do all sorts of things. I'd done quite a lot of. Somebody had offered me a job as well. I was offered a job. I did lots of stuff for KP for an agency doing that, and the guy offered me a job as art director. So I was leaving anyway, and I said, "But you're out in High Wycombe, and I've still got to finish my notice or whatever." He said, "Well, I'll start paying for your driving lessons." And I said to him, "Okay, if I start driving lessons, how long do you think before I can have an E-Type Jaguar?" And he said, "A year." And I said, "No, I'm not sure comics." And even now, it's one of those things you think, is that the sensible? I thought, no, I've got my third wife and second liver by now if I've done that. So I went freelance, and I first of all did a bit for 2000. I did stuff for Eagle, which was nice working for Dave. And I worked for Marvel UK. And I did, as I said, advertising. I did all sorts, anything that was going. I just liked being freelancer. You just do any job. And it used to be, there was this thing, and I think it's not quite the same. You'd be at a party and somebody would say, "Oh, do you fancy doing such and such?" Or we had a softball team, 2000 AD softball team. And you'd be playing, and I just say at this point, the only person who could actually play softball properly to start off with was John, because he played Little League baseball when he was a child. So he was actually the only one that could do it properly. So, we all came to it eventually. So you just do I just do anything. I was going through, I've been clearing out old stuff and things and just draw anything that was going really.
Because after you'd left, you did Bad City Blue for...
That was, they gave me that as I went, yes.
As a parting gift, or just
I truthfully think that it was something they were trying to sell to DC that DC didn't want. I suspect that's probably what it was.
I remember reading Bad City Blue, and it struck me very much as a kind of very solid kind of dystopian sci-fi. So not in the kind of the vein of something like Nemesis, but more in your kind of what am I thinking of? A stainless steel rat mixed with a little bit of kind of Escape from New York.
Probably Escape from. It was something like that, wasn't it? It was just a one-off thing. It was half an idea they had. I remember John and Alan at that point. I mean, I was working for, I think I just said Eagle, but John and Alan, writing under assumed names, were writing half of the comics being produced in the country. They wrote more comics than Jimmy Page played on records in the 60s, for God's sake. I mean, F. Martin Candor. Well, Martin's was John's local newsagent. Candor was the local garage, and F because it sounded good with Martin Candor. They wrote all this. They were writing 2000, and they were writing Scream, I suppose, and Eagle stuff and all sorts. I don't know. Scream, Eagle, definitely. Yeah. So for a science fiction one-off like Bad City Blue, that was that.
I mean, what was your feeling about it? Because you had you done any sort of major sequentials like that previously?
No, just one-offs and things.
Okay.
What I really wanted to do was actually spend the next few years just drawing things and trying to get better at it. So I did do that for Eagle a bit. Because there's lots of things. I look at the stuff I did, and some of it's pretty, it's pretty awful. And I that's why I don't look at it very often. But you can only get better, so it's that thing. But the thing is, what you need to do is to draw all the time to do it. And I suppose I used to end up doing all sorts of things. I did stuff. I did some strips for Transformers and for Action Force for Marvel. And in fact, I think we did that. I did that in advertising up to we did the Bogie Man,
right,
which is in '89, I think, '88 and '89. So
I mean, we'll come on to the Bogie Man in a minute because you did odd episodes of Dread.
Just one-offs and things.
You did. Obviously, we talked about the four dark judges.
I think I might have mentioned to the editor that a suggestion that, as he said, the first thing he ever liked was Monsteroso. That if he ever wanted to do the return of Monsteroso, I'm the man, and I've got the artwork, and I might even bribe him with it if he wants it.
With those sort of one-off Dreads, was it? I'm interested in how you came to drawing them. Was it something that you requested? Was it Steve saying, "Oh, do you want to do a
just
Dread?"
That if I want some work or something, I'd say I want some work, and John would say, "Oh, right, well, next time it'll be that or whatever." When there's usually between multi-part stories and things, and you get to do odd ones and things. But they're always. I'm trying to think which ones. There was Pinboing Replay. There was Monsteroso. There was one with the bloke that looks like Russell Grant. There's with a demon out of a pavement or something with a colour spread or something. I can't remember. I know the spread's knocking around. These are very forgettable things. But I'd have drawn anything that was going, truthfully. Right. I fancy drawing pretty much whatever's available and things.
Because I find it interesting that, like I said earlier, that kind of crossover between commercial and sequential comic art. Because you're also doing things like, I mean, he stood behind us, the big life-size standee.
I was on staff for that. I had to take a day off to do it.
Really?
I was going to because the publicity department had commissioned this thing, and it's a weird thing because if you look, it's distorted because it had to be changed because it had to fit in a size of two pieces of the board they could make it out of.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it had to be, so we had to kind of juggle it and things. And Brian was going to do it, but Brian was busy doing something else, and we ran out of time basically. And Steve said, "We're really fucked because you've done the rough of this, and we've got to have it in 2 days' time."
Yeah.
And Brian's agent said, "Brian's too busy." So Steve said, "Can you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, you have to give me a day off though." And of course he couldn't give me a day off. He said, "You can have a day of your holiday." And I don't think they ever took the day off me for that, actually, in all fairness. So I just took it home and did it on the kitchen table. Yeah. I think the artwork for it's that sort of size.
Okay.
So yeah.
So actually about kind of half.
About third size. Yeah,
right,
so it's a good piece of artwork and things.
Because it was interesting because that at the what's it called, Cartoon Museum's 40 years of 2000 AD, they had
one of those,
yeah. Sort of facing you as soon as you came in. It's kind of instantly recognisable. Not lots of people. I mean, it's interesting. Were you purposefully trying to mimic Brian's
I was trying to do it as close as I could to a specific Brian picture because they wanted Brian to do it. The Brian picture was a black and white that we'd used as a poster or something, and I had to actually just copy it as closely as I could copy it.
Right.
Which it's not quite as there's not the finesse there and things, but I think most of it's pretty much the lines. It was enough like a Brian thing because that was the idea. All I was trying to do was just make it look like Brian had done it enough that people would be happy with it for the. It's got that slot in the middle, which is where the comics went. That's what it was. This is what it is.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it is. It was a display thing to go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that.
So you slot them into his belly?
The comics went in like that. That was the idea of it. It's that stupid. I just got the artwork back for it from Rufus. Rufus borrowed it years ago for an exhibition in Belgium Belgium, I think. And I only got it back. I've been trying to get that artwork back off him for years and years. And he ended up living it in the comic shop. What's the comic shop near Longacre? The one at the end of Longacre, it's... I can't remember what it is. Eventually, the artwork... Rufus goes to Germany, leaves my artwork there, nobody can find it.
Right, okay.
Eventually, I got it all back.
Right.
I think Gary got pissed off at me, because Gary knew where it was, but unfortunately, he didn't give me the clue, which is it's got some orange parcel tape on it. Had he told me that... so that was just, I took a day off and did it, possibly.
Because one thing I did always love with those little the stand-up things, cut out and stand them up of Johnny Alpha and Slane and
dressing up dollies as they got called. That was just to try and get something different out of out of a newsprint comic, basically. Yeah.
Because it sort of reminds me of what you were talking about earlier with the annuals, where you're taking a cue from...
It was a dead page and try and do something with it. Yeah. There's the model of it, of Rogue Trooper one, I really like, because he had a 5-string banjo on his back as well, which looked really good on that. And I can remember we used to do this. We'd line them all up along the thing and fire rubber bands on them. Yeah. No, it was just to try and get something else out of it. Enough kids liked them. And of course, the ones that really liked it had to buy 2 copies, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because they'd cut one of them up.
A kind of a collector's market kind of, there are people now buy one to bag and one to read.
People I know are quite abusive, but I think it's once you've done it, and that's the thing, isn't it? You can't take it back once they've seen it. It's that.
Because something that really came in this period was the wraparound covers.
Yeah.
And I think Steve mentioned that was actually you working out the printing presses could now do this.
Yeah, no, because I figured out that if they could do a centre spread, they could do a wraparound cover, because there's no reason, because it's the same, and because the way the signature worked, or that it was done with, and we had to have 2. Obviously, the colour stuff back and front, the spread and the thing is done the same, so there's no reason why I couldn't wrap round.
Right. Because there's some absolute crackers.
Something brilliant. I love that Brian one, actually. That's one of my favourites. So
which one?
Thread going across it. There's firing from city block to city block.
That's the one where he's kind of stood.
That's it.
Kind of dead centre, but firing onto the back cover kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see the cover up of that one? That's identical. It's good fun when you could do that, because it just made it different if you did a wraparound. And it just made it sort of... Oh, we just kind of really scraped the barrel, because then when you had a free gift issue, the thing is, when you got a free gift issue, it boosted the circulation, and so you'd be dropping down to 85. I mean, I'm saying this is off the top of my head, but down to 85,000. This is home sales. Remember, don't forget the Gordon and Gotch selling it in South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and wherever. So some bit of the Mediterranean, Pluto, Uranus. Why the fuck do we leave that on there for so long? It's awful, isn't it?
People still ask us why the price isn't on there for Pluto.
Yeah, well, you could say that inflation never hit because it takes too long to get there. It probably has, but
or plucks it or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's just stupid, isn't it? But once you do something like that, you stick with it, don't you? You can't be bothered to change it. It's that.
It's part of the ethos. It's like still calling them progs. It's like still saying Borag Thung. It's the background furniture, but it's the important stuff.
I think so. It makes it fun, doesn't it? Gives it identity.
Zyjazz Monthly.
Yeah.
You came up with the title for that, I think.
Probably because it made for a good logo.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little, because this was one of the kind of attempts at having a sister comic, really, wasn't it?
Well, this was the attempt at doing. We used to get, as I was saying to you earlier, these anthology titles, Italian and Spanish.
Yeah.
And a lot of them reprinted Warren stuff. They reprinted all sorts of things. And they were called things like La Tenorta, or they were called Simoc, was one we used to get a lot of. I've got a few of them up there. I think I cleared a load of them out, but. And they have fantastic stuff done by Spanish artists.
Yeah.
Usually the stuff we didn't have. I mean, and then they'd have Warren stuff as well. And we just realised that 2000 AD stuff could slot into that. And there was also the possibility you could do longer, slightly more complex stories. And I'm not saying adult, but you could probably do slightly more sophisticated stories.
Just from that, it sounds more like your kind of Metal Hurlant kind of style magazine.
There was that. And remember... I think Marvel, wasn't Archie Goodwin was doing Epic at the time.
Yes,
and I think this was slightly before they did that, but that was the idea, that you go for a European kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously the thing about 2000 is because of the influences on it. If you think about it, it's influenced more by American and European comics than it was by the British comics it followed.
Yeah.
Although people did like the British comics, that really and honestly the influences were American or European anyway, so more that sort of, or it seemed it, just from a visual point of view.
Yeah.
Though obviously then you'd have people that worked on, classic comics, Eric Bradbury, people like that could work for it still. And that was the idea, was to do that. And Steve, it was JMP, Juvenile New Publication, and I can't remember what number it is. I tried to remember because somebody asked me recently. David MacDonald in Ireland.
Oh yes, from Hibernia.
Yeah. And he asked me about it, and I said I can't remember what number it was. And I did have a moment of remembering what was put. He asked what was in it, and I think it was Redondo did Nemesis, didn't he?
He did book 2.
Yeah. Well, I had photocopies of that here, and I couldn't figure out where I'd had them, and I think we might have put them in the Zarjaz dummy.
Right.
Because I couldn't figure out, because I didn't have keep. I mean, they were nice artwork, but I didn't keep photocopies of anything. But I found them in a folder of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it must have been from the Zarjaz comic. We had that fantastic Mickey painting of the of Slane and the Tyrannosaur on the front of it.
Oh,
that was the cover of Zarjaz.
The one that we put on Warrior's Dawn, the first collection.
And that, I think, caused controversy because that was seen before anybody else's close relatives' version of Slane that was seen for something. But that wasn't the intention, and it wasn't seen widely because it was just done for that. It's actually on the cover of one of the Titan books as well, isn't it? I think it's the Slane book. And that was the cover of it, and then Zarjaz logo. I mean, when you get an idea for a logo, you do the same logo every time. It's got a Z in it, you're going to do that with it.
Yeah.
But it was great, it was good, it was a good looking thing, and we had to do it, and then we just felt it was reprint to we hadn't, it was a dummy, and it really was literally a dummy. We put some stuff in. I've probably put some Casanova's artwork or something we then used in an annual or a special, because you used everything that was going, and that was the idea. But they didn't like it in the end. They didn't want to risk it because it was an unknown. It was unknown.
I mean, that just strike me as odd, because you've got a comic that's selling, on a good day, 100,000 copies. For a company whose business model was, let's launch a new title, and if it doesn't do all right, we'll just fold it into another one and hopefully bring some of those that audience with it. To not want to launch a new title and maybe do the same thing.
Well, you couldn't merge because it would be a different format, so you can only merge things that are similar.
I get you.
And remember, that wasn't IPC's business model. I know this because I've been on the indoctrination course. We will publish a magazine. This is because it was in their absolute heyday. There was only 2 publishers working in this country that were really successful magazines. There was DC Thompson, who had the distribution through Menges, and then there was IPC in England. And the model was, as I was given it repeatedly, was we will do a magazine for any slot in a possible readership. So if we're going to do boat magazines, we'll do one for somebody with a tiny dinghy. We'll do one for somebody with a 20-foot boat. We'll do one for somebody with the next one. We'll do somebody one for cabin cruise. We'll do one for a sun. We'll do one for a luxury yacht. So you see everything that would be. So if you're going to horse magazines, you do one for a pony, and then you do horse and hounds, the rest of it. Yeah. And that was supposedly the idea, that they do something for everything. But with the comics, they had to match. So you couldn't merge a big glossy thing into a. You could sort of vaguely do that, but as it was the same thing anyway, it wouldn't work.
I mean, I suppose they kind of got away with it with Star-Lord, because that kind of run into a bit of trouble with its stock.
Yeah, and it didn't really work ever, did it? And it's it's a great shame. But then the stories that came out of it were some of the best stories. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Star-Lord, I think, because people have said this, but I think Star-Lord was probably the first gay character in 2000 AD's history. That's what we reckoned at the time. Because how camp could you actually be? He was so camp, and it was just like that whole.
Well, who are we talking about?
Star-Lord.
Star-Lord. Okay.
Yeah, Star-Lord really was. Yeah, and it was just too camp to be convincing. Whereas you got Tharg, you can't come up with Star-Lord then. It's just not going to work, is it? It didn't work. It didn't work. Or it was based on Alvin Stardust. Have it whichever way you want.
Well, what was your guys' attitude towards that kind of the editorial character stuff? The the Tharg and the Star-Lord and things. Was it just having a bit of fun, a bit of a mess around?
No.
Or was it just a nice bit of distance?
We
from the
were
audience?
Doing kids' comics, and kids liked it, so why not?
Okay.
And the parents liked it, why not? It's a great idea. And it saves, if you look at there's reprints there, terrific and fantastic. They had Alf and Bart as the editorial staff, which is Bob Bartholomew. He knew nothing about comics. Yeah. All he wanted was the Eagle desk, and he got that when he retired. He took the original Eagle desk with him and things. Right. He didn't like comics, but if you go to the editorial, it was Alf and Bart. I don't know who Alf was. I'm sure somebody would tell you. They were the editorial staff of the comic. They were just tedious. It wasn't fun. It was like no fun. Having a strong editorial character just gave it sort of a rather offbeat identity. And of course, with Tharg, you get away with anything, which is Tharg demands that something's done in a certain way, otherwise you're sent to Mechquake. It works perfectly. A lot of the Mechquake stuff and things is obviously Kevin, because you can tell that's got that sort of that thing, and it's obviously you can have a laugh with it and things. The Tharg issue though, the original Tharg, and I think I've got one of the photographs, the mask was great. It was only black and white photographs, so it was grey mask, the hairpiece and the thing stuck here.
Yeah.
Kelvin's motorcycle outfit, which is still what's on that piece of film I've shown you of Steve is wearing Kelvin's motorcycle gauntlets and boots, which obviously got left when Kelvin left. But the mask, when we moved half an office, we had to put things in crates because this was IPC, so you'd have to put them in crates and somebody would have to come and move them half an office. The Tharg mask went. The grey Tharg mask went. There was no Tharg mask. Right. And we were actually, nobody knew where it had come from. So in lunchtimes, I used to go around London to appropriate places trying to find a Tharg mask. And this is true. Eventually, I went to the magic shop, which is underneath Charing Cross Station. You know the bit that always smells of piss, and there was a magic shop down there. And I went in, I know this is a long shop. I went, oh, it's Neanderthal. What do you mean it's Neanderthal? It's a Neanderthal latex mask. Do you want one? I went, yeah. So I came back to the office with a new Tharg mask, which was, again, putty-covered latex. Yeah. And Steve knew somebody that did makeup for movies, or his girlfriend did, or something. Took it off, and that's when it was green for the first time, sprayed green. Put the rosette of Sirius on properly. Proper hairpiece on that goes down the back. Yeah. That's the one in that film, because the original Tharg, you can sort of see that it doesn't really, and I don't think it was very well put on there. And we redid it, and that's the Tharg Reborn. We heard about it enough to do that.
And it was still Steve having to don this thing in photos and in film.
Well, Bert wouldn't fit the outfit, and I wasn't going to fucking do it. Come on, be realistic. I think the original photograph, it's probably Kelvin in that because it was his outfit.
Right, yeah.
But Steve, Steve put on the rosette, and he hated plastic cups. That was the worst thing.
Watching that film, it's really striking. The only time I've ever worn that head because we got a new one made. Oh. But you know, similar kind of.
If somebody asked me, you could have gone and bought one for £7. So.
But you can sort of see
it's pressing on the ice, isn't it?
And I came out of it with scratched corneas. It's terrible. I'm never putting that on. Al Ewing wore it. I think he might have even DJ'd in it at some 2000 AD party, and it's a horror. Anything like that. Never want to put that thing.
I don't like. I mean, it's such a long time since I had a motorbike. I don't even like full face motorbike handlebars. I like a nice. I like a nice open,
yes,
In fact, that is quite unpleasant to wear, even the Monkey King mask.
Oh, right, okay.
That's not good either, right? But there's a Japanese film, which is probably, I have to be corrected on this, it's Kagemusha, which is the one about the warrior coming back and he finds a mask in a reed bed. He puts the mask on and he can't get it off. I've often thought, Steve, could have gone that way. I hadn't seen Steve for quite a long time, but I had really good fun. I did do a drawing for when he left, when he retired.
Right.
The publisher of whatever the rumpet of IPC was rang me up and said, would I do it? So I did a picture. So I'd done a drawing there, but I hadn't seen him in years. It was so nice. He kept me a seat at his table in case I wanted to sell anything, which I thought was really sweet.
Nice.
I bought a copy of his book though, so yeah. So it was nice.
So let's look back on the 2000 AD, your time at 2000 AD. I mean, what are your feelings about it now? How do you what place does it have within your life, your career? Was it formative? Was it the pinnacle?
Well, I still like it. I wish I'd worked for it a bit more in the last few years, I suppose, if anything, but it just doesn't work like that. I like the fact that I've been texting Mickey today on the subject of Strong and Stable My Arse and Judge Dredd juxtapositions. It was when I went to that thing, and it was just, I think, at one point I was standing there at your convention having a drink and having a laugh with Dave and Mickey and Carlos. And Lucy was there, and it was great. And I just thought, this is really good. And Alan and Sue, I just really nice. I thought, it's really good because you know these people for all your life, really, and it's that sort of, and they're sort of pretty much the same, which is the thing in a lot of ways. Richer in some cases, balder in other cases, more argumentative in some cases, and craggier.
Yeah.
But it's working there, I just think it was a really good thing. I know that it was good because when people went to work on it, there wasn't a 2000 AD they all wanted to work on. They started doing it, it became 2000 AD, if you see what I mean. It was sort of like, it wasn't like they'd all sort of aspired to work on it for years. They kind of made it, all those guys.
Yeah.
And it was the fact that I felt lucky that the only proper job I had as a grown-up was, if you're going to have an office job, that's the office job to have.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to say that last year, I realised I had a Reed pension from working for Reed International IPC for 5.5, 6 years. And it's $5,000 a year I get now from it, so you can't really fault that, can you? Because I think if I live another 20 years, that's $100,000 for 6 years small pension contributions.
Excellent.
So you can't,
Well, that's 1980s publishing pension schemes.
Oh, absolutely, because the rest of them are rubbish. All the freelance ones you get.
Well, I'm surprised Maxwell didn't.
I didn't let him have mine. Lots of people did.
Right.
Because he robbed the pension fund.
Yeah,
He persuaded
yeah.
It was the Mirror Group, and that was part of the same thing. No, I stuck with Reed, which is obviously they've been putting money into the little pot for all these years for me, which is really nice. I've told a couple of other people that only had jobs like that for a few years doing things. I think Alan went, or worked as a gardener for Edinburgh City Council. I said, well, you've got a pension then, because everybody had to have a, you never know. So I'm sure that you should go back and suggest that you'd like to see your employers putting more money into your pension. So when you're old and...
I'm not sure how well that will go down.
Your father was a minister, though, so they can have no great expectations of being looked after, can they?
Well, that is true. That is true. Let's move on to... you've talked about Eagle, because Dave Hunt was the editor there, and you did Computer Warrior. Now, I have very fond memories of Computer Warrior, because this was it was John and Alan under a pseudonym.
Yes.
And it was essentially riffing off that whole kind of ZX Spectrum kind of
very much
age.
this. Yeah.
I mean, it's something we probably could never reprint because the copyright would be a nightmare.
I don't even want to go near it.
I said I have very fond memories of it.
Actually, David MacDonald, he liked that, or his kid liked it, or somebody had been reading it. Somebody had liked reading old copies of it.
It's good. It's
a kid's story.
It's a kid's story, but it's because it's a different thing every single week. It's the same idea, and certainly when we've been going through the IPC Youth Group archive, there are certain, particularly the comedy strips, where it is the same joke every single week, and that can get tedious. But the thing about Computer Warriors...
Bob Painter wasn't really very funny. He was a nice bloke, and he looked like he should be, but he didn't really have very many funny ideas.
But with Computer Warrior, it was a fresh strip every single... Because one time it'd be, he'd be a samurai, the next one he'd be a cowboy, things like that.
Absolutely. It was good. It was good fun. And of course, what was really good about that is I was doing 5 pages a week, which is always good. And if you're doing that 4 or 5 pages a week or whatever you're drawing, it's great because it's really good. It's really good practice. I think what did I do with it? Have I got it? Yeah, I think I've got a few. I've got some of the artwork still. I think I threw some stuff away. I think. Detective Z was the next.
Well, that's the thing I was going to ask.
Okay, I'm the only one that hadn't seen Inspector. No, actually, Alan hadn't seen Inspector Gadget. John had. Alan and I were blissfully unaware. Truthfully, I had no idea that this was just totally ripped off from a cartoon. So that was pretty stupid. Obviously, it was quite good practice for drawing stupid hats and coats. But it was nice. The nice thing was, they liked it in Eagle. The kids liked it, and that's one of those, isn't it? If the kids like it, it's absolutely fine. That's the.
I mean, in terms of your style, in terms of you talked about the practice of doing sequential artwork, wanting to get better. Did you see a steady improvement over this period? Were you happy about how things were?
No, I dislike everything I've ever drawn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I dislike everything, and every time I draw something, I hope it'll be better than last time.
Right.
Sometimes I look at things, bits of things, and I go, that's not as bad as you remember it. But generally, I just kind of, I just constantly, that's what you do. You're just self-critical, and you just go, and I know the bits that are right. As I told you with the Bogie Man, every time it's been reprinted, I go back and change a few bits.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that it's tricky when you're doing it, because of course you're doing it to make a living, and you're doing it with we'd had a baby by the time I was still. I mean, we've had 2 babies since you're still doing that. They're not babies, though. We've got a doctor and a medical student. It's work. You've gone through it. But the thing is, you were doing it to make a living, and you had to pay the mortgage and everything. And the people were quite strict about things like that. You couldn't default on anything, and you had to just keep going and things. And of course, sometimes you want to spend more time and make it better. And if you ask anybody, if you ask Kev, Kev used to work, working nights a lot of the time if you wanted to talk to him. People just used to work at all the hours going. And the sensible person was Dave, because Dave used to go, I work during the day and I don't work in the evenings, and that's my family time and things. And he was always had a much more sensible attitude to it. But the rest of you just sit there and do it till you...
Well, that was the Ron Smith principle. There's a certain amount of time you have to do this page.
Yeah.
And when the timer goes, you stop.
No, because he did that, But he would do that. He'd do it, and then he'd go through all the pages when he'd finish, and finish off all the pages and things.
But I think he said that would be in his own time. That would be a Sunday evening or whatever.
No, they were disciplined about it. But then look at the guy. I mean, look at some of the artwork that you see, the old stuff from the. Look at the old Valiant artwork and things. There's so much work in that stuff. That people just put lots of hours in and things. And you just had to do it, because of course the other thing you have to remember is it wasn't, when you put page rate and everything, it's very well paid. And it's quite funny that in the last time I worked when I went freelance, I was getting paid £85 a page. And the last time I drew a page for 2000 AD, I got £120. Now I reckon that 30 years later, either it was a lot at the start, or it hasn't moved on and things. It's a weird thing, that rates, because if you actually read, there's a book about Eagle, so an advertising guy did it, and the rates they got paid in the 50s for doing that are astonishing, because basically a page of artwork was the equivalent to an editor's salary for a week, and that was the balance. But it's you were getting quite well paid for doing it. You just had to do more if you wanted more money. Is basically the bottom line. I know now people retrospectively get royalties and things, but the thing is, people aren't drawing that much now. There's not that much being done new. It's basically royalties on stuff. If they did stuff, I mean, I know that people do extremely well. I know I've got a pretty good idea of the sort of royalties that Carlos and John will be getting, and Alan less so. I know what Mickey gets, because vaguely. So it's that sort of, depends how much you drew then, I suppose. I can claim mine every 2 years, because it has to be £100 before I get it. It's not original. No, I did need some money one year, and he did say, well, it was 90, and he said I could have it if I wanted it very kindly, but I didn't need it in the end, so it's fine.
I mean, what you said you don't like the stuff that you've drawn. What is it about it that you don't?
I just see the faults in it and things. I mean, sometimes you see something and you think, well, that's okay. And some of the jobs, if you do an advertising job, I mean, like, weirdly, the last advertising job I did was marketing packaging job. When you're at art college, one of the things you do is, in fact, I did cigar package. You in the 70s, it was do a cigarette packet, and you think, I'm never going to draw a cigarette packet. I was working for Lucky Strike for best part of a year and a half ago, doing drawings for cigarette packets, which I think I probably got in at the end of drawings for cigarette packet, not for this country, I hasten to add. So the stuff like that, and then I did. I spent a happy week trying to redesign the Jägermeister logo. So those sort of jobs, I look at those things and I go, they're great. I quite like those things. And I like the general effect of things. Like at the moment, I'm doing a comic with Alan. We did a comic which was for a Scottish charity a couple of years ago. It's about a boy it's a real boy, but he's autistic. And it was the only things he responded to were horror comics and science fiction comics. And so Scott interviewed him and wrote this thing which is about zombies taking over Edinburgh, which was to highlight Scott's issues, reality. Now, because of the PIP assessments for people with mental health issues, he's having to go through all this stuff, all this absolutely intrusive stuff to prove that he needs help, financial help. So we're doing Scott versus demons now, which is, but it's still raise awareness, but it's really cool. I mean, the first thing, Alan was doing it, and lots of writers in Scotland, writers and poets all contributed to this. Ian Rankin, famously, the detective writer, has a son who I believe has some unfortunate issues. He contributed to it. Alan was asked to do it because he's a national legend, and he's a living star in Scotland, but of course he can't draw. So he had to get somebody to draw it. So the girl that did it, like the Bogie Man, she said, would I draw it? So I drew it, and I'm doing the next one now. And I like that because it's worthwhile and things, but I looked at it and going, I don't know how to draw, that's awful, isn't it? It's like, can't do it better. And it's just that, you just keep doing. The thing is, if you're going to not do that, you might as well stop and you just keep going like that, and the odd bits come out okay and things. I've also done lots of things like storyboards and things like that. they work if the client likes them, and that's how that sort of work does.
Well, it's something that came out of the when I had a chat with Mick McMahon, the whole thing about he never feels comfortable about ever resting on his laurels because he's worried that he's got to be like a shark. You've always got to keep moving forward, otherwise you'll drown.
The thing is, Mickey's approach to his. I know he's my friend and things, but he's the most remarkable artist. Mm-hmm. The fact that he manages to develop and to change and to move on and to, I mean, I think like a lot of people would say about Mickey, he's probably too overcritical of the stuff he does because he does some that's absolutely fantastic, and he doesn't. It's not good enough for him. He moves on and things. But he is phenomenally. I mean, all those artists are all great. Yeah. But Mickey has there's something exceptional about the way he approaches things, which is different. And in some ways, it's the same way as Kevin does it, which is somewhere between being a cartoonist and being a comics artist. There's a movement and things in what they do. It's not. It keeps on changing, and it's still got that feeling about it. No, I love it. I mean, when Mickey does stuff, I get him to send me whatever it is because it's usually inspirational. And in fact, the cover I was talking about, the one for the Burger Wars and things, I think it's the best piece of artwork I've seen in years. It's the most fantastic thing. And of course, it looks brilliant on a phone or an iPad, doesn't it? It's a gorgeous thing. Yeah. So
let's talk about the Bogie Man. Which, for anyone listening who hasn't read it, it's basically a guy in an insane asylum in Glasgow.
Outside Glasgow,
who is under the delusion that he is an amalgam of all of Humphrey Bogart's characters.
It's more than that. He is.
Oh, he is. Okay, sorry.
It's not identifiable as being anything. He is. Yeah. Basically, Humphrey Bogart. Everybody thinks of Humphrey Bogart in character, or absolutely not.
Yeah. But it's him impressing his version of reality onto a slightly unforgiving world.
Yeah, everything fits, doesn't it? It was John and Alan wanted to do. I think it was a photo strip they were doing for when they tried to do boys' photo strip stuff in one of the comics. Yeah, Eagle probably. Yeah. And they wanted to do this character, which was basically a gumshoe detective, because they liked doing because John liked doing what he thinks sounds authentically American, but what the rest of us know just sounds Scottish, right? And it's a bit like when those two try and do imitations of, say, Kelvin Gosnell, and what it is Jockney. It's like what a Scot thinks a Cockney sounds like, but nobody else knows what the hell it's supposed to be. It's that. Okay. Yeah. So I knew they had this thing, and they wanted to. I think they did shot a few bits of this and things, and we started going up to Glasgow and doing signings and things, 2000 AD, because it was a big Scottish fan thing. So we did, of our own bat, decided to go up and we go to signing at their local comic mart at the library or whatever, and it became bigger. I mean, that's turning into a proper convention eventually. And we'd go up, and there was money floating around in Glasgow because it was the Year of Culture coming up, European City of Culture. And the guys up there that did the comic things, two of them, John McShane and George Jackson, was a musician and traditional musician, had a record shop and business and band and things. They decided they wanted to get some of this money, put some money into publishing. John McShane said to me, what are we going to do? And I was I thought science fiction-y. I fancied doing a futuristic version of Glasgow, because that's the sort of thing. If you ask an artist what he wants to draw, you go, I'd like to do a futuristic version of Glasgow. You know, it's that thing. Or I'd like to do some knights, or perhaps some soldiers fighting. You know, it's that sort of, what do you draw? And it wasn't really kind of coming off. And then I said, well, John and Alan got this idea. Why don't we, because there was a degree of whether this guy was mentally ill, the guy that thinks he's Humphrey Bogart. Yeah. And I said, I'll talk to them. And I rang up Alan and John, whichever one I saw next, and said, why can't we set that in Scotland? Why don't we set it in Glasgow? Because I know John wanted to do that. They were doing Midden Face McNulty and stuff like that. They wanted to do Scottish stuff. Yeah. And they said, yeah, good, that was a good idea. So we decided to do that. So there was the Bogart spoof, because there'd been a few, because there's a Steve Martin film where he pretends to be, there's a Steve Martin film where he pretends to be Bogart and things, something like Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, I think.
Oh, right,
that.
Okay.
So it seemed like quite a reasonable thing to do. And then it just went from, so we did the Bogie Man, which obviously is funny. John and Alan do reckon it's the funniest thing they've written, and I think it's certainly the oddest thing that we should have thought of doing in the first place.
I'll be honest with you, it does seem like an odd
it was a
prospect.
It was a very strange thing. Scots love it. people that have never read a comic love it. They just like it. It was just because it's written in Scottish, I think, is the thing. I don't understand a word of it because nobody's ever told me. They did a glossary, but a muck glossary. And they just liked it. And at the time, it just went down because nobody'd ever done something as strange as that. And I liked it because I drew Glasgow in it. Well, it was obviously not futuristic Glasgow. So I did do things like when there's a car chase, I did actually do it so you could authentically go around the one-way system in the car chase. It was that. And it was just funny. It was just very funny. I liked doing it. And it was just stupid doing an independent comic because everybody was trying to do independent comics, remember?
Yeah.
And some of them thought they were doing The Watchmen. So what do we do? The Bogie Man. That didn't work, did it? So people were doing... Yeah, the idea was you could do something independent and it was creator-owned as well was the idea. So...
Because it did come to... I think I read in an interview, it came to be known as the Scottish comic in the house. Because it finished off so many publishers.
And so many people died. I mean, the original George Jackson, the original publisher, died. One of the Pete Root, lovely guy up there, was one of the guys who used to come and see, died.
Right.
Well, in Scotland, in Glasgow, there's quite a low death rate, age and things. Yeah, that's right. It finished off and it did us. It did Fat Man Press.
Right.
Which I like to say, I named the company, what do you want to call it? George was quite poorly, so Fat Man Press worked well. Then John Brown had it, but John Brown's pretty indestructible. I'll tell you John Brown in a minute. But John Brown reprinted it for us because I think it was probably because his marketing director, Maddie, used to be friends with Frank Pirate and played softball with us, and I think in the end that's how we got the into John Brown, because he was looking for things to do. Right. He thought he was going to be his golf magazine, I think, originally, and then he took it somewhere else. So he did that. Then I think Tundra, it helped launch Tundra. I don't know, there was all sorts of stuff went on and things. So there's lots of versions of it. Then DC were kind enough to pay us to do it again and things. The BBC did it, of course, with Robbie Coltrane. He managed to fuck it beyond recognition by acting like he was doing it on purpose. He just messed with the script. But interesting, after doing that, Robbie Coltrane did go off and do Cracker, which, involved Scottish people, Robbie Coltrane, and mental health issues. So, I think he'd probably figure that one out. And then the BBC never showed it again. They showed it twice, and that was it.
Well, that was his kind of transition between being a comedian and being a serious actor.
Even less funny than he was. So. It was good in those. It was produced. The Bogie Man thing was produced by John Byrne, though, who also did Tutti Frutti and My Aching Heart. Those two wonderful things they did in the Scottish things with Robbie Coltrane in as well. So I think John Byrne had quite an influence on it, and he's quite an interesting bloke because he's a painter as well as married to Tilda Swanton, isn't he? But they have do you not know this? He's an interesting bloke. He's one of those blokes that does a bit of everything and things. Right. John Byrne. Do you know those? I don't know if you've seen these documentaries. What artists do all day. There's one of them which is about Scottish artist Thingy.
Frank Quitely.
But if you find those, there's one about John Byrne as well. They're quite interesting, actually. All of them. I could recommend them, actually. They're a good way of wasting. It's what artists do all day, isn't it? It's a good way of wasting time. So, So we did the Bogie Man. And it went down well, and it's just caused... And I was just trying to do that. I remember trying to get some payment with a child in a pram in Glasgow at a record shop, and they offered me cassettes instead of... And I was going, look, I like a bit of fiddly-diddly music occasionally, but really, honestly, we've got to pay a mortgage and things, so that was a bit sort of... And then that was so successful, we then stupid enough to do it again, and then we did the stupid colour one because of the controversy with John and Alan deciding to do it for Jeff Fry at whatever his company was called. Toxic. We put in Toxic, but then that was in contravention of my copyright, so that was abandoned, and I redrew that story that Kennedy had started doing.
Was that China 2?
I think it became... Did it become... Was it China 2? Or
was it China 2 to Casablanca?
No, it wasn't.
Well, no?
It wasn't. It was the one-off thing where he goes to America and kidnaps Dan Quayle. Of course he does. Sorry. There is one copy of it, so I'm giving you that part. There's only one copy of it. But it was the most stupid thing. Actually, there's two copies. I think I've got to send the other ones around there. It's that one. It's the one that involved Bogie Man. Which has nothing to do with the Bogie Man whatsoever.
How bizarre.
It was just an excuse.
A Lexington special.
Yeah, absolutely. God, if they'd only known we could have kept it till now, imagine what we could have done. So that was, I think, the one that was there. And then we did Chinatown, which I really like. Chinatown, actually. I read it the other day, and it actually still makes me laugh, the bit with the ferry pistol and the fireworks at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's okay. And we did Return to Casablanca, which should have been called Casablanca, but John wasn't having it because he didn't think of it. Well, Casablanca, it's screamed, isn't it, to be done. So yeah, so we did that. So Bogie Man's been done quite a lot. So
it caused a bit of bad blood, the issue over Cam being brought in to draw it.
Well, I don't think it was bad blood. I haven't spoken to Cam since because he'd stayed at my house before.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, and that was like, I took that as you've dirtied my towels and not having that again.
Without sort of dwelling too much on it, looking back on that, what are your feelings towards the Bogie Man? Because you said it still makes you laugh.
We've done it. We did it since. Now it's all gone again, but we did then do more Bogie Man, and I still quite like it. I really, really, really wanted to do the Bogie Man for the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
I'd really suggested we did that, but I couldn't get any enthusiasm from anyone else. I've also suggested a newspaper strip over the years on the fact that now to do a newspaper strip and syndicate is easy because you can do it from your computer.
Sure.
I then suggested that we did a poster of Nicola Sturgeon and what was the guy, the previous leader of the Scottish Party? The one that looks very much like a mixture of Sydney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre.
Now you're asking him. It's gone straight out of my head.
Yeah, exactly that thing.
Former leader of the SNP, can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I've suggested a few things over the years. Now I think we are going to do a poster or two, so I did actually dig some of the artwork out to start looking at it and things. So I think, who knows, we might possibly do it. John said we'll never do it again, but then he's quite old now, so I mean, he's going to die, isn't he? So you can leave that in, it's fine. No, we could, if there was a funny idea, because it is funny, and it's some of the funniest stuff that he and Alan have ever written, best together, I think. It is, actually.
I mean, it's one of the things that survived the breakup of their writing partnership, because you had that period where they kind of went their separate ways after the last America that they did with Nick. But they've continued to write.
That would be nice. It would be nice if anybody reprinted that and sent me a copy of it, wouldn't it?
No comment.
Okay. They did. They've done bits. I think how the dynamic used to be that John and Alan used to do things, and they were pretty inseparable. I think it's been John and Carlos with the Dread stuff in the last few years. I think that's probably, I don't really know, you'd have to ask them that and things.
Let's talk about what you've been doing since, because you did Green Candles, which was for the abortive...
Randy Helfer.
Yeah, the graphic mysteries line.
I did all the big books of things.
Right.
And then I did Green Candles, but they reprinted the Bogie Man, you see.
Right.
So yeah, they wanted some stuff. And Green Candles it's like, it's the longest thing that was quite the same I've ever done. Right. There's so much of it.
Okay. Well, for those who are listening who don't know anything about it, tell us a little bit what
it was written by a guy I think his name is Tom DeHaven. They did a series of books. John wrote... what did John do? There was 2 successful books that came out of it. One was History of Violence, was one that I think was made into a film. And there's a film with... there's 2. There's another one as well. The two of them got made into films. Green Candles didn't. It's a story about false memory and abuse, basically, and false memory and...
Okay.
Abuse and unpleasantness and things. I think I drew it. I think that's what it was about. It was very long. I suspect it was being written. I think it was written as probably a TV movie synopsis or something. So I did it. I was very happy to do it because working for DC is absolutely lovely, and Andy Helfer was a very nice guy to work for, and the other Joel Rose, his assistants, are great. He's a very clever writer. And so I quite like working for DC. It was lovely. DC were really nice. I mean, I've got a silk Superman dressing gown. I've got a watch I've got lots of really good books. I've got DC, but they were really good. They just treated their talent or employees extremely well. They also did things which I still love Andy Helfer for, which when I'd done Green Candles, there was 3 books and they lost the entire artwork for one book. I think it was about 90 pages a book. And they just paid me for it again. I tried sending the other 2 boxes back and saying, you lose these as well. No, he wasn't having any of it. So yeah, but it wasn't very interesting. The big books were great to do though. Didn't pay very well. It was quite annoying. The reason I think that whole line didn't make any money is because Andy would FedEx pages back and forward, just one page in a FedEx parcel.
Right.
And so I think all the money was long since gone before the books were published. And they were great fun because you got to draw a great thing. The first one I did was the Big Book of Weirdos. I got to draw 6 pages on Aleister Crowley, which is brilliant.
Right.
And then I did Aleister Crowley. The rule was about the books. You could only do one story in each book. And loads of artists did them and things. And Andy Helfer rang me. He said, I've got 1 page left to do. And he said, and it's a bloke, I don't really know anything about him. It's called Screaming Lord Such. And I said, well, Andy, the only time I haven't voted Labour in my life was in a European election in Islington. I voted Monster Raving Loony. So can I draw? And he went, oh, go on then. Okay. So I got to draw 1 page of Screaming Lord Such as well in the book. But it was great. I did a thing about Edgar Allan Poe and stuff about the Kennedy conspiracy. I've drawn Kennedy's head from both angles, and stuff like that. Yeah, great fun to do. That was really nice, but they didn't pay, and they were supposed to reprint, and I've got them reprinted in Turkish and Greek and things, but there's never been a penny in royalties because I think it was all used with Andy's FedEx habit. Yeah.
I mean, let's sort of talk about this period from the end of the 90s through to now. What's your career been like? What are the kind of things that you've been doing? Because I think you did a few years of Doctor Who, didn't you? Inking Doctor Who comics.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Right.
Yeah, and I managed to do 5 years of the Doctor Who that nobody ever wants to see again. Would you like some artwork? No, here, have some more. Yeah, it was quite hard to ink because he had that curly hair as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, this is just what Sylvester McCoy's stuff.
No, I wouldn't have.
Tom Baker.
No, keep going. The last one.
The last one.
The McGann boy.
Oh, really?
They got 5 years out of McGann.
Good God.
Yeah, really. I know, because I used to sit here and go, if I have to do this again, Lucy, I'm going to die. And the weird thing is, we moved here to Tunbridge Wells, and Marvel UK were based here. They're in the Pantiles. They were, like a quarter of a mile that way.
Yeah.
They're somewhere here still, because it's Panini, so...
Yeah.
So I did that for a long time. They said, "Oh, you can draw one. You can draw it. And they let me do 2 pictures of his planet eventually, and then they went on to a better Doctor Who, and everybody wanted to do it. So it was that. Yeah, but you do it. You just, as I said, you do it. I mean, you do it. That was paying for a house to be modernised. It's that sort of. You do it like that.
Is it been very much as you've already said, the kind of you take the jobs that come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I try and do it less. I did work for Redan for a long time, so I've done lots. When people talk about mindfulness and colouring, if you've done as much colouring as I do, it's the last thing you do. You try and find something on Radio 4. The last thing you want to do is think while you're doing it. Yeah. I've done lots of stuff like that. I did loads of stuff, because Jenny O'Connor used to give me loads of work, so I've been around the Letterland alphabet 3 times, drawing and colouring stuff on that and things. I've done quite a lot of rainbow furries. I've dabbled over the years with colouring things like My Little Pony and Wombles and all that sort of stuff. All the stuff. I always wanted them to do a Wombles versus My Little Pony kind of Secret Wars thing. Because we know that the Wombles have got teeth somewhere, you just can't see them. It's that. So I did lots of stuff like that. And then just advertising stuff. So I've done, storyboards for computer games. Alan and I did Lego stuff for a while. That was good fun work, because when they started doing the Lego games, they had to have the animated sequences in between the game playing stuff. Yeah. So they'd have to do it. So I got to storyboard some of those. So we had Lego castles in the house and things. That was always very entertaining. Yeah, no, they liked it. It was good, because the Lego castle came, but it was the Lego castle they'd used for the publicity photographs. So some of it was stuck together. It all was labelled and things. So that was good. It was quite good fun doing that, actually. I did lots of work for Muller, the dairy people. I designed their kids' stuff. Right. As I said, I was doing Lucky Strike stuff. I just like anything that just sort of. There's some of the stuff I've forgotten. You forget you're doing and things. It's like at the moment, somebody's just asked me to do some drawings for Elite, which is a role-playing game that somebody's redoing. They're doing a crowdfunding thing on it at the moment. So I'm going to do some drawings for that. It's just like anything that comes up. And then odd bits, and every so often I email Matt Smith and say how about some work. And every so often I think about once every 3 years, he says, you want to do this? But yeah, at the convention, Sue Grant and I were trying to find Matt Smith and realised that neither of us knew what he looked like. So I truthfully had to look him up on my telephone, identified him, and then we figured out he was doing a talk. So we went and stood. I'm sorry, Matt, if you hear this. We went and stood at the end of it, and I was going to take a photograph so we could remember. But somebody saw what we were doing and closed the door. But I'm told he's quite shy at these things, which I don't blame him for.
He's not, again, sorry, Matt, he's not the most forward of people.
No, I don't blame him for those things. That's why that's why I wouldn't go on a panel or anything, because I figure there's gobbier people than I am, and they, I figure with things like that, you can only get yourself into trouble if you go and sit on a panel. It's probably not the same now.
I think everybody did okay at the 40th.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody said anything.
Everybody was charming and lovely. They're all good. And Pat was like a whirling dervish. I've never used that expression before, but it's suited.
So, I mean, we've already talked a little bit about how you view years at 2000 and your feelings towards your own artwork. Is your career something that you feel fulfilled by? Do you think the career that you've had is the one that you've wanted? I
think you just keep on doing whatever you're doing,
right.
And think about it. Think you could be like Steve Dillon or Brett, or you don't. You just do what you're doing, and lots of other things come along. You have a family, you have children that do what they're doing successfully. You're a parent.
Yeah.
You never actually have to lose a mortgage. You never have to sell the house because you can't afford it. You just about, obviously you have to get the car done by a bloke called Reg, but we won't even use his name. But no, it's sort of, I'd like to have drawn more interesting things, but I think, I regret the passing of the proper comics industry. I like that when I went freelance, or even when I worked, I've done stuff for Tiger, Roy the Rovers, Battle, Action, all those comics. Oh no, it's Battle Action, not Action. There was lots of work you could do. If you weren't drawing what you wanted to draw, you find something else to draw instead. Yeah. I'd really like to have done something where I could have drawn more, like most of us, more historical, more action stuff. I've drawn far too many things. Dave once was doing an interview and he was asked about aspiring artists, and he said, well, when you start, you want to draw comics, what you think you're going to be drawing is the Hulk and the Thing battling on Brooklyn Bridge. Well, in fact, you get your first script and it says, taxi draws up in a busy street and man gets out. Well, I've drawn far too many taxis, busy streets, and men getting out of them.
Yeah.
So if I never had to draw anybody in a suit, again, I would be pretty...
or a trench coat, for example.
Yeah, I could probably do it, one more time. I might just do it. But I've drawn lots of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And it's not as exciting. You'd like to draw something a bit more... like 2000 AD in its heyday, I suppose. It's that, you still like to draw that stuff. I think I'm still going to have to do this. I mean, Ian Kennedy was 87, so I've got another 27 years to do this. So, there's still,
I think you're still going strong.
Yeah, you just keep on doing it, don't you? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
Looking back at that kid in Port Sunlight, devouring Marvel and DC comics and whatever...
The only comics I've got because I got rid of all those comics.
Yeah.
And the comics I've had the longest are from about 10 years later, from the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And they are Neil Adams comics from that period.
Yeah.
And then the Jack Kirby comics when he went to DC. So all of that stuff and things. And they're the oldest comics I've got some old reprint stuff and things, but... And I look at those and I think, I'm quite fond of these still. They're familiar, but they're nice. It's that thing. Kevin, there's the page of Neil Adams' X-Men there. That's what Kevin gave me for a wedding present.
Wow.
Which is not bad. There's a Mickey. I'll show you the Mickey page downstairs as well. So, which I've always liked.
I mean, how do you feel about having been that kid, reading those comics as a child, and then getting to have a career in the thing that you wanted to do? I mean,
it's quite fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
enjoy it. It's enjoyable. It's better than having a job, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
Sometimes it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Sometimes you worry because you're not getting enough work. But there's always something that comes up and you'd end up doing some work. You do something you do a really well-paid job, be it cigarette packets or whatever. You don't worry about it for a while until something else starts coming up. And then, of course, it all comes up at once and you end up having to work and remembering how to do it. It's that thing. It's not as... Some of the things aren't quite as hard as they used to be. So a lot of the thing was about... The thing you asked about producing artwork in the first place. Half the battle used to be finding Bristol board, finding Indian ink, finding a decent brush. It was all that sort of stuff you used to battle. And of course, it's not so bad now because you can draw it in pencil and you can ink it on the computer. You can do it like that, and it sort of takes some of the pressure off the sort of the craft of it. I mean, the fact is, occasionally I do draw something still properly, just to remind me that I can still do it. I can still ink with a brush and things, and it's still a pleasure to do it. It's really nice to draw, and it's that. The fact that you don't have to worry about when the post office is open now, because computers are such that you can send large files, and that's such a recent thing. I mean, I think when we moved here, because I was working for Redan, I was doing quite a lot of work. I think my last job was to run down to the post office by the station, because it was a Safeways there, and I could catch the 6:30 post if I ran. It was that, and you don't have to do. It's not having to do that sort of stuff. It's good. So things are more relaxed about it. And I think the stuff you can do on the Mac and things is astonishing. Not having to colour by hand is pretty good. I mean, I was looking at some old artwork, and I was going, "My God, you even airbrushed that!" I hate the airbrush, but you had to do it if you wanted a particular thing.
I think that's one of the reasons why, as we were talking about earlier, I maintain a great kind of romantic affection for the way the industry was that I was not involved in any way, that I had no experience of, but I've heard through stories of, artists coming down, delivering their artwork, everyone going to the pub. Even though at the beginning of my journalistic career, if I went to the pub at lunchtime, I'd fall asleep at my keyboard. But
that's why I wouldn't drink at lunch. Christmas Day is the only day I'll drink at lunchtime, even now,
but now, Simon Davis is the only person who comes to the office to deliver his stuff, and that's because he paints. Whereas everybody else emails it in, and
it's not as much fun, is it? Though.
No, I don't.
No, I can see that.
So. Don't get me wrong. We all love working at 2000 AD. It's great fun.
No, it's not.
But that kind of social aspect.
Well, that's why I felt lucky because you got to see all these guys. I mean, I started to say earlier. Carlos would come in, he'd give me a drawing lesson. It's just nice, it's lovely. He'd just say something and he'd do it. And I told you, Mike Dory would give me a drawing lesson by leaving whatever he was supposed to have finished to finish drawing. It's that, and it was nice. It was that nice thing, and it was like you'd hear. It's like David come in with some great idea, which was using cotton buds to put large areas of black on, which might have worked when they were rolled waxed paper, but now they're a plastic tube. All that happens is the ink sucks up onto your hand as you try. Only because I tried to do something with one recently, it's that. But there would be that thing. What is the latest board? What's the latest pens? Where do you get decent? Sort of. I mean, I've found a packet of Strathmore Bristol board that Dave brought in from America, and I needed some as well. So, and that's still sitting there because, of course, then things changed. We didn't need it anyway. It's that. I think it was fun, but it's like people try to do it so an artist and writer works together. The thing is that doesn't really work because the writer can piss off in no time, and the artist has to labour over it for hours and hours and hours. So there's a good bit and a bad bit about that. And there's also the American way of doing it, where you used to. Well, it's different now, but an artist and a pencil and inker would work together and things. Some of that was quite fun, but it was just to get more done in the same length of time. Whereas the other thing with people just coming in, that was just the pleasure of they were interesting and entertaining.
And you like I said, you were there at that critical sort of early 80s period where Steve would come on as editor and 2000 AD was. I mean, that is its original heyday. That's the first golden age.
It was I think it was about a year and a half old when I started on it and things. Yeah, no, it was different. It was a different thing because it was, as I'm saying, it became 2000 AD. It was just a comic that people could work on through their agents and things. But only did people go, I want to be able to do that and do that and do that and things. And it sort of changed like that.
From what you've said, it does sound very much that you had a remarkable amount of freedom, possibly because IPC didn't give a tinker's cuss, possibly because Barry didn't give a tinker's cuss about it either. So if you wanted to push the boundaries, you could a little bit. If you wanted to do, dress up paper dolls of Dredd and Rogue Trooper and slay them, you could. If you wanted to put a picture of Massimo Bolognelli on the back as a robot, then you could.
As long as it wasn't going to upset anybody
Right.
that would complain to the managing director of IPC. I think that's pretty much the thing.
Yeah.
I can tell you one story about that was there was an agent called Mr. Hall, and he represented Ron Turner, who was, did Rick Random, was it? I always mix up which was Kevin's spoof of it and which one was... No, Rick Random's the
Rick
real one.
Random, yeah.
And we could never tell whether Ron Turner was a real person or Mr. Hall was both people. We suspected that Ron Turner wanted really to have been retired, but Mr. Hall wouldn't let him. And Mr. Hall used to make our life a fucking misery. Because he'd ring up and he'd be so critical and he'd do things to Steve. I think he'd say, I'm going to tell them, I'm friends with the managing director, I'm going to tell him. And I think Steve said his dad knew the man. I can't remember. He said, I'm going to tell you, you can't do that. And he'd be on the phone to Steve and Steve would get frustrated. I mean, this is how he went through typewriters and desks.
Yeah.
He'd just I have to be polite still, because that was, you've got to be polite.
Yeah.
And Steve would take this shit off this guy. And it's like, then you've lost an hour on a crucial day or something and everything sort of, gets sort of more tense and things. So Mr. Hall rang up one lunchtime. There was Cole White and I in the office, and Mr. Hall started his usual fucking diatribe. And where's Steve? He's gone for lunch. Well, he should be in the office. He's the editor, and he just gave me all this. I just went, look, we're trying to do a job here. We'll do it properly. If Steve wants to go for his lunch, that's absolutely fine. You just make a pain in the arse of yourself, and really, I think the best thing you can do is just fuck off and let people get on with the job. And Cole's just going, and Mr. Hall said to me, who am I speaking to? And I said, Colin Wyatt. I reminded Colin of that. He said I didn't sleep soundly for quite a long time afterwards. So there was things like, there was all like these weird people who suddenly turned up. There were throwbacks to bits of IPC. There was this bloke called, what was his name? Melvin something. Or he'd turn up, but you'd have to be careful because he'd just steal things as he was in the office. And there's all this weird, these weirdos that would just kind of just turn up, and there was just this the general odd thing. And then Tom obviously knew some quite odd people as well, but that was a different story. Yeah. No, it was funny, but do you know the thing you can't get is how people used to manage to function after going out on those absolute benders. Yeah, you'd have to be in the office the next day. I've got to say this: I had a reputation for getting in late. I used to be in for about 11, so we only had to start at 10 o'clock, for Christ's sake. This is how reasonable this was.
This sounds very familiar.
Yeah, but I'd get in for 11 pretty much normally. But, to be fair, I would stay there till everything was done.
Yeah.
And I used to like working in the King's Reach Tower when everybody had gone home at 5:30, because you had peace and quiet. They turned off the air conditioning, which is a good thing. So the silence, it was silent. And you could just work there, and everything was there if you needed, and you just worked in peace. And I always liked that because it was always more productive to get on and get stuff done because there's no phone calls to interrupt you and things.
Yeah.
And John Wagner told me how to get away with this from his DC Thompson days. He said, look, when you come in, if you're late and you think there's anybody going to be around in the office, what you do, take your jacket off, leave it downstairs in the foyer or leave it somewhere else. Roll your sleeves up and just go into the office, because people, if you go in your shirt sleeves, assume you've already been there so early they missed you. And that's a really great John Wagner's,
Note to self.
Yeah.
Roll sleeves up.
Yeah, of course it would, a place like that.
Yeah.
Beautifully. So, that's pure John, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, told a story about an agent who used to bother Steve, and then they suddenly stopped calling. It might have been Mr. Hall. Suddenly stopped calling one day, and they just assumed he'd died.
That's probably Mr. Hall, because I told him to fuck off. Sorry, Colin told him to fuck. It could be. Colin's stories are... do you know... What you need to do is do an interview with Colin Wyatt. I'm not sure that it's good on 2000, but everything else Colin ever did is the best stuff. Colin's stories are just the absolute best. They go back to the early days. He lives in Canvey Island, right?
Okay.
Just in case you need to know in future.
Yeah.
And there's things like he had a bubble car. And he and his girlfriend, Jan, were in the bubble car. And they drove it into our garage and he stored it up against the wall in the back. And they had to wait there. So Paul tells me a story like that in stone. He's going, I'm pissing myself laughing until Jan's dad came back. What are you doing? And I said, well, that's the thing of a bubble car. He said, yeah, but the first day I took it out, I got it stuck under a wheel arch of a brand new Ford Anglia. Going round to roundabout. And stuff like that with Colin is just... When he lost the Harold Her artwork off the back of his scooter. Yeah, when they were having a playing in the office, and there was Mickey Mouse artwork, because it's when they used to publish Mickey Mouse, and he knocked a bottle of black ink over a page of Mickey Mouse artwork, when Gil Page was the editor of this.
Yeah.
Gil was not best pleased. Colin, actually painstakingly, and I can believe he'd do this, painted with white gouache all the white back into that artwork. Okay?
God.
Stuff like that is just, stuff. Colin's stories like that, just like, and there's lots and lots of those sort of stories.
That kind of knocks the whole kind of, covering up of a bit of a Jesus Redondo boob kind of thing.
Everybody's done that stuff and things. Yeah, we all did that.
Well, thank you so much to Robin Smith for talking so candidly and for giving so much of his time. It was absolutely fascinating for me to chat to him. Long been an admirer of his work. I hope you've got something out of it and have enjoyed the chat, Earthlets. A really great insight into what went on behind the scenes at 2000 AD in the first golden age in the early 1980s. Make sure you tune in 2 weeks' time, Earthlets, where we're going to be bringing you the hottest gossip from San Diego Comic-Con. Looking forward to heading over and meeting all the US squawks deck Thargo. We're going to be talking to quite a few creators, I hope. And so it should be an exciting week. So if you're going to make it, we'll see you there. If not, see you next time, Earthlets. Splendid Verthrig.
Alert! Fill power levels dangerously high. Alert! Read 2000 AD every week. Ask your comic book store or newsagent now. Subscribe to the galaxy's greatest comic at 2000ADonline.com. Subscribe digitally on our apps for Apple, Android, and Windows 10. And download DRM free copies from 2000ADonline.com. Alert! Stand by for urgent updates. Search for 2000 AD on Twitter and Facebook. Watch the latest videos at youtube.com/2000 AD online. And follow on Instagram at Insta2000 AD. Program complete. Shutting down.